现场2分半。现场1分半。Ladies and gentlemen, good day, and welcome to Global Trend Talent and Skills Mobility webinar. Today, we will be focusing on the theme of regional competency, integration, and talent mobility. And first off, as the MC, part of my job is to introduce all the VIP guests joining us here online today. Yes, this is an online event. So, please join me in welcoming from the Ministry of Labor, Workforce Development Agency, Deputy Director General, Mr. Lin Hongde. Please wave your hand and smile to the camera. Thank you so much for joining us. You are our host, our organizer. Ladies and gentlemen, welcoming our VIP guests, guest of honor actually, Australian Office Taipei, Acting Representative, Mr. Michael Gugan. Welcome. Welcome, sir. Welcome, Your Excellency. Thank you for joining us, sir. And ladies and gentlemen, the list goes on. We have so many people joining us here today. Australia, TDA, this is TAFE Directors Australia, TDA, NSW, which stands for New South Wales, Department of Education International. Please welcome expert and former CEO, Mr. David Rorden. Good day, sir. Thank you so much for joining us. Smile and wave to the camera, please. Okay. Originally, planning to join us was TAFE NSW, Technical and Further Education of New South Wales, Australia. This was Product Manager, Major Trades, and Lead Subject Matter Expert, Mr. Richard Bell. However, he has a tight schedule and he couldn't be joining us here today. Originally planned to be. Ladies and gentlemen, moving on, please welcome TAFE NSW, Technical and Further Education, New South Wales, Australia, Head of Infrastructure, Energy and Construction, Sydney, Skills Excellence Network, Madame Jennifer Perkins. Good day. Thank you for joining us. And now, ladies and gentlemen, welcoming Technical and Further Education, New South Wales, Australia, Senior Manager, Global Engagement, Madame Yuan Peng. Thank you so much for joining us. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Technical and Further Education, New South Wales, Australia, International Engagement Lead and Contracts Manager, Amber Mastrangelli. Thank you for joining us. And welcoming Thai German Institute, TGI, Thailand, Senior Manager, Pomsak Suksiri. Sawadee ka. Thank you for joining us. ladies and gentlemen. And now from Taiwan, this is National Tsinghua University in Taiwan. Please welcome Chair Professor, Professor Jian Zhenfu. Thank you, Professor, for joining us. Thank you so much. Global Education Association in Taiwan, please welcome Mr. Chairman, Mr. Cai Shitao. Thank you so much for joining us. You look wonderful, sir. Thank you so much. And now joining us is Cabinet Making World Skills Chinese Taipei Expert. Mr. Expert is Mr. Hou Shiguang. Thank you for joining us. You're looking great too. Thank you. All of you look great, actually. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Joinery World Skills Chinese Taipei Expert, Mr. Jia Daqing. Thank you so much, Cai Zhang. Thank you for joining us. And the list goes on. Welcoming Competency Standards and Skills Evaluation Division of WDA, Senior Specialist, Mr. Chen Mingshan. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Chen. 谢谢陈专门委员. And we have many guests joining us online via YouTube. They're our viewers, but I also must acknowledge them because they're part of the event. Please welcome Malaysian Timber Industry Board Cabinet Making World Skills Malaysia. Thank you for joining us. Terima kasih. And now, please welcome Cabinet Making World Skills Indonesia to join us. Terima kasih to you as well. And of course, Australian Office Taipei is joining us online as a viewer. And from Taiwan, we have National Development Council joining us. And of course, our host, Ministry of Labor, and also Workforce Development Agency of Ministry of Labor. And there are several divisions joining us. They're all parts of Taiwan. So here goes. Welcoming Taipei Keelung Yilan Hualien Kinmen Matsu branch of WDA. Welcoming Taoyuan Hsinchu Miaoli Regional Branch of WDA. Welcoming Taichung Zhanghua Nantou Regional Branch of WDA. And there are more. Please welcome Yunlin Jiayi Tainan Regional Branch of WDA. There you go. You know all the names of the regions all over Taiwan. And of course, last but not least, in South Taiwan, we have Kaohsiung, Pingdong, Penghu, Taidong Regional Branch of WDA. And of course, joining us as a YouTube audience is Skills Evaluation Center of WDA, as well as various vocational training agencies here in Taiwan. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you so much. Now, ladies and gentlemen, since we have so many VIP joining us, I believe it is time to take a group photo online. So, first, we all have our face mask on, and let's take a group photo. Second group photo, everybody has their face mask off. How's that? For convenience sake, okay? Everybody, put your face mask on. If you don't have a face mask with you right now, that is okay. Second photo, everyone should have their face mask off. Okay, so first photo, with face mask on. For those of you who don't, it's okay. Look at the camera and smile with your eyes. Smile with your eyes because you have face mask on, covering your smile. Okay. Now, second pose, thumbs up. Thumbs up for our webinar. Thank you very much. You look wonderful. Now, let's do the group photo without the face mask, shall we? Please. Okay. We all have social distancing because this is an online event. So, now smile, a wonderful smile, and welcome to Global Trend Talent and Skills Mobility Webinar. Second pose, remember, thumbs up for our webinar. Ladies and gentlemen, thumbs up. In Taiwan, this is called Zan, okay? Zan to Global Trend Talent and Skills Mobility Webinar. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Now we shall begin officially our webinar with our welcoming remarks. Joining us online live, we have our Deputy Director General of WDA. This is Deputy Director General, Mr. Lin Hongde. Please, welcome, sir.
澳洲办事处
Acting Representative, Australian Office Taipei, Mr. Michael Gugan, all the distinguished guests attending here today at the event, good afternoon. So, our WDA Director General, Mr. Meng Liangcai, had planned to attend the webinar today, yet his schedule refrained him from attending this event. Therefore, I will be representing WDA in today's meeting. On behalf of the Workforce Development Agency, Ministry of Labor, I sincerely welcome all of you to attend our Global Trend Talent and Skills Mobility webinar. Because of the advancing technology and digital development, our global labor market faces common challenges on the workforce skills cultivation for industrial change. One of the solutions in solving this talent shortage is to engage in international vocational training cooperations through our experience exchange. To enhance international cooperation in workforce policy and project, our WDA has been maintaining a long term collaboration with Australia and Thailand in the field of vocational training and skills development. Based on the MOU signed and renewed in the past 2 years, we share a close relationship and have jointly promoted many projects successfully. So, in the past, Taiwan and Australia have successfully launched the 2018 APEC Event Coordinator Pilot Program and 2019 Event Competency Digital Upskilling Program. Senior trainers were recommended by the TDA to teach lessons for the programs, and participants were awarded with certificates endorsed by Australia. So it has become a best practice for cultivation of talent between both sides. And so, um, And so, our WDA has also developed the idea of course recognition into a multilateral framework. Since 2017, we have also witnessed stronger ties with Thailand by organizing our Seed Trainer Upskilling Program and to invite TGI delegates to be the guests of speakers in many occasions. Our TGI delegates provided a lot of experience in vocational training, which helped the WDA in building the framework of multilateral cooperations. The labor market continues to face serious challenges posed by the rapid change in technology and also the spread of the pandemic. I would like to call on the countries to enhance collaborations on the cultivation of talents for them to be equipped with better skills in the post-pandemic era. Looking into the future, I hope to continue deepening relationships with Australia and Thailand and to include more countries in the multilateral framework in facing global labor market challenges. Finally, I would like to once again express my gratitude to all the participants and experts for attending this event today. Since this webinar only marks the beginning of our collaboration, we will continue deepening Taiwan's relations with Asia Pacific countries. So let us work together for the economic growth and regional integration. My best wishes to the success of this webinar today, and thank you very much for listening.
Okay, thank you so very much to our host, the Deputy Director General of WDA, Mr. Lin Hongde. Thank you so very much. Ladies and gentlemen, moving on, also for the welcoming remarks, I have the honor of inviting now His Excellency, Acting Representative, Australian Office in Taipei, Mr. Michael Gugan. Good day, sir.
Good day. Thank you. Good to see you again. First, let me acknowledge our Workforce Development Agency Deputy Director General, Mr. Lin Hongde. Thank you for your opening remarks. Distinguished panelists and guests, it is my pleasure to welcome you to today's Talent and Skills Mobility webinar. Hui Fanny ma? No, 没有. Okay, I'll continue in English. This is the third occasion I have had the pleasure to open a workshop hosted by Taiwan's Workforce Development Agency. I commend WDA and its Australian partners, in particular TAFE Directors Australia and TAFE New South Wales, for their ongoing commitment to deepening skills collaboration between Australia and Taiwan. Australia and Taiwan are long-standing close education partners, including in vocational education and training. And this includes through our skills mobility work in APEC. Australia is the second most popular destination for young Taiwanese looking to study and enhance their skills overseas. As we re-emerge from the pandemic, we look to restore this vital link between our two peoples. Australia has also taken lessons from the pandemic, particularly in improving the quality of online education. We are committed to expanding our online study and vocational training options, including for international students. We are also working with Taiwan to help it achieve its bilingual 2030 policy. In March, the Australian office was pleased to partner with Taiwan's National Development Council and the Ministry of Education to host the Australia-Taiwan English Language Learning Dialogue. This dialogue brought together Australia's world-leading English language education providers with Taiwanese institutions. Turning to today's workshop, I am pleased to see our cooperation in education and skills development turning into practical collaboration. The work of TAFE New South Wales, in partnership with the Australian Office and Taiwan's Workforce Development Agency, to map out carpentry training standards is a great step towards talent and skills mobility. I wish all the participants and experts today a successful workshop. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Your Excellency. Thank you, Mr. Michael Gugan, Acting Representative, Australian Office in Taipei. And now, ladies and gentlemen, for our English speakers, please be reminded that our interpreters are interpreting your English into Mandarin simultaneously. So for our English speakers, you do not need to pause for our interpreters. Okay, household housekeeping items. Moving on, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for our keynote speech, cross-cutting exchange and new views. And first off, we have the theme of regional integration, industrial technology, and smart workforce via Industry 3.5 and Blue Lake strategies. Wow. Okay, and to speak to us about this wonderful topic, we have our professor, our chair professor from Taiwan National Tsinghua University. Please welcome Professor Jian Zhenfu. Professor, please. Welcome.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for all distinguished guests, especially from Australia, Thailand, etc. My topic is about so-called Industry 3.5 and the Blue Lake strategy. I will start to explain it. Next slide, please. As you can see, now the global supply chain has been impacted by this pandemic. And even before this happens, there was a feature article in Harvard Business Review talk about the so-called the death of supply chain management. But we know in a lot of APEC economy, we are rely on our economic growth being part of this global manufacturing network or global supply chain. So why would they say so? Next slide. As you can see, this when this ongoing industrial revolution, talking about smart production, so this supply chain, every segment want to play smart, which means they want just in time, they want mass customization or mass personalization. So it creates a lot of dynamic and uncertainty into this global supply chain and causing this bottleneck shifting around different area or among different. Sometimes, for example, the transportation should not be a bottleneck, but now it is a bottleneck. In the semiconductor industry or high-tech industry, that Taiwan has been very strong, and I'm very familiar. We know that now the bottleneck shifting to some associated parts rather than the key components such as wafer chips. So this is a challenge for this global manufacturing network. Next slide, please. So now every player in this global supply chain, when we want to, for this industry 4.0 or intelligent manufacturing, smart production, then we need to deal with this manufacturing resilience. How can we balance this demand and supply? And as I mentioned, the demand on one hand, especially for high-tech industry, the demand is a short product life cycle and very fragmented demand because of everyone want customization. On the other hand, for the supply, it takes a longer lead time for the capital expenditure to build a new factory, to migrate for new technology. So this balance will become very challenging. And conventionally, of course, we rely on hardworking people. They manage the supply chain. They call each other in this business ecosystem. But now, on the other hand, we have this AI, big data, etc. Those technology. How can we combine, or how can we restructure our management practice? Next slide, please. So I used to on leave from National Tsinghua University to work in TSMC. That is one of manufacturing or semiconductor leader in this global industry. So I worked there for 3 years, try to involve in this corporate planning. So at that time, I proposed so-called PDCCCR because this keynote is short. So I want to mention that this pricing, demand, and capacity, configuration, capital expenditure, cost structure, they are interrelated in this global planning, corporate planning level. You need a global optimization. But before, for the corporate or for the industry, they tend to divide and conquer. So we have different functional departments to deal with different purpose. But you know, when we divide it into organizational hierarchy, then the decision tend to be localized. And we exchange information to each other, but not so fast, and maybe not synchronized or orchestrated to address this challenge. But as I mentioned, the needs for this global supply chain call for such solution. Next slide. So for those who are interested about how company like TSMC address this kind of problem, I wrote a case study in Harvard Business School, talk about TSMC way. And indeed, later I will explain why in Taiwan we propose so-called Industry 3.5 rather than Industry 4.0. But this TSMC way is actually considered as a new paradigm for this industry, especially manufacturing industry, to address these needs of ongoing industrial revolution. Because, for example, that is a public data for TSMC. They have about 600 customers. They have about 12,000 product ongoing, but they have 12 million wafer each year. So you know that each product will only share about 1,000 wafer. Of course, they have big customer and a small customer, but the average is just 1,000 pieces of wafer each year. And those capacity was surprised by worldwide 12 wafer fab. So you can see a lot of resource sharing, and you need to optimize the resource allocation, and in light of those PDC-CR relationship. Okay, next slide. And the reason I use TSMC way because I studied industrial engineering more than 30 years ago when I was undergraduate in National Tsinghua University. At that time, of course, even nowadays, Toyota way, or called lean production, has been a paradigm for production management. But you know, the automobile industry, or a lot of assembly line, they are based on the industry 2.0 revolution when Henry Ford using this mass production assembly line. Of course, there are a lot of improvement using a lot of robotic automation, but this assembly line for mass production is like a conventional way, especially for those industry. They have mass production. As I mentioned earlier, semiconductor industry, each customer each year only share 1,000 wafer. And those products, they share the same common facility dynamically in this manufacturing system, just like the airport, or just like a lot of hubs. You need a lot of optimization location there. Okay, next slide. So TSMC now they own about 800,000 citation. Of course, far from total way, but we think it should be a new paradigm for this ongoing industrial revolution. And next slide. And actually, I have written about 12 case studies in Harvard Business School, and all of them, they are based on the paradigm or the leading company in Taiwan's industry. And I think this is how Taiwan can help in this APEC economics, because we have a lot of industry in different segments along the supply chain. They dealing the same challenge, because Taiwan, we have limited resource. We don't have so large population, but we do have a lot of hardworking people. We try to address those challenges from time to time. And those accumulated knowledge is actually part of the solution to address the issue I mentioned earlier in the first page, when Harvard Business School say the death of supply chain management. So we need to collaborate to deal with the challenge, then to reduce the waste along the supply chain, and to enhance the resilience of this global manufacturing network. Next slide. So then I want to explain why I proposed this so-called blue ocean strategy. You know, blue ocean was proposed by two professors in 2005 because everyone wants to find a new land or new blue ocean, because if this new market, because of innovation, etc., you find a new market, then this market is no boundary. So it's like ocean big, and then the margin is high, so-called blue ocean. My question, actually, they also receive a lot of questions, but my question is that it is not easy to find a blue ocean, just like not easy to find another Australia or another United States. So, but on the other hand, even if you find a new land or new ocean, new blue ocean, then the competitor will jump in. Then sooner or later, the margin or the competition is so high, then the blue ocean become red ocean. We can see a lot of industry, this change, okay? And since Taiwan or a lot of APEC economy, we rely on small and medium-sized enterprise or hidden champions. So I propose so-called blue lakes. Next slide. Blue lakes means it is rather a big ocean. We want a lake size or a pond, but because we focus on this niche market of this global supply chain, global manufacturing network. So while the others, they are due to the severe competition, then the margin become low and become red ocean, etc. Then you would be able to maintain a rather good or healthy lakes or pond. But if someone may say, I'm a big enterprise, the lake or pond is not good enough for me. Then my solution is you should have thousands of blue lakes or 10,000 of blue lakes, just like TSMC. They have 600 customers. They are important customer in different segments. So even sometimes they get attraction or competition from the other leading semiconductor and company. They can just share some of their big customer, because the customer also want to diversify their supplier, but they have 600. So that is why those competition could not be very successful, and they know how to manage it with limited resource to diversify and dynamically serve each of the customer. So this is the ultimate vision of this blue lake strategy. We want thousands of blue lakes, in Taiwan, in Thailand, in APEC economics, so that everyone live very good, healthy, wealthy ecosystem, rather than a few number of big enterprise control this blue ocean or red ocean. Next slide, please. So why this is important? Because as Germany proposed this Industry 4.0, they divided industrial revolution into 4 phases. Next slide. My argument is that this 1, 2, 3, 4, they are not continuous. We know that the first industrial revolution is because of the invention or improvement of steam power machine. So we enter the mechanical era. We know the so-called third industrial revolution is on the basis of the invention of transistor or integrated circuit. So we enter this digital era now. But this Industry 2.0 or Industry 4.0, they don't have any enabling technology. They are more like a continuous improvement. So it will depend on different region or different economics how we are migrated from or on the basis of this enabling technology. Next slide. So as you can see in Wikipedia, Industry 2.0, it took almost 80 years. There is no enabling technology from 0 to 1. It's more about 1 to 100 or 1,000. So different countries have different paths. And as you can see here, Henry Ford, like I mentioned, the Toyota way, Henry Ford, the automobile industry, they are one of the paradigm in this Industry 2.0. And they also talk about industrial engineering, tighter mass production assembly line. So it is more about technological revolution rather than quantum jump of this research breakthrough. Is more about technological revolution. So this Industry 4.0, of course, it may not realize like after 2025, but it certainly will not take 80 years, but it will step by step. So like I said earlier, different countries can decide their path or their roadmap. Next slide. Next slide. So the vision of this Bosch is that profitable still lot size equal to 1 still profitable. So the new concept is very different from the conventional mass production. So you don't see this assembly line in this Bosch's vision. You don't see AMHS system like in TSMC in Bosch's vision. So how can we manage manufacturing network, each factory, they don't have assembly line. Their lot size is very small, even down to lot size equal to 1, and still into this global supply chain. Next slide. So, I think emerging economics should have our own manufacturing strategy. So as I mentioned earlier, in Germany, 2011 and 2013, they proposed this Industry 4.0. In Taiwan, because I was invited to join some committees, I proposed in this Industry 3.5 at that time, 2014. Next slide. And unfortunately, because a lot of Taiwan's industry, they realize our limitation, or we should have our own strategy. So it get a lot of attention. So Commonwealth is like Harvard Business Review in Taiwan. So they invite me to give a keynote in this Commonwealth forum and publish a book. Next slide. So this is for your attention. So this Industry 3.5 versus Industry 4.0 to me is like Iron Man versus iRobot. And next slide. This is actually come from a friend of mine. They are WPG Holding. WPG Holding is a world largest semiconductor distributor. So their icon is like a cute boy, but now they change to Iron Man. You know, in APAC in economics, we have a lot of population. We have a lot of small, medium-sized enterprise. They actually create a lot of job opportunity. So if we use this iRobot solution, although it looks fancy, then everyone seems to own robot in your factory, but they are remotely controlled by someone else in another place, where manufacturing base in your home, causing a lot of potential issues such as power, waste management, or circular economics, etc. But Iron Man is different. Every man, they are empowered, or we want to humanize our industrial revolution to support our worker localized. So when they get up their iron suit, they can still enjoy their life in APAC economics. Next slide. So I use this company as an example. Since they are distributor, so they need to deal with this demand fluctuation along the supply chain. They are suffering from both sides, from their customer, their vendors. So we use, of course, AI and big data can help improve this demand forecast. But not just that, we develop a decision support system, just like Iron Man. You not just have iron suit, you talk to Javas. Javas will give you some decision suggestions. So this is how we did. Next slide. And the AI is actually very complicated. We use ensemble learning, try to ensemble a lot of intelligence. Just like this forum, we have experts from different fields. So we develop a solution like that. Next slide. And it actually also highly cited in IJPR. Next slide. So what is the issue for small and medium-sized enterprise? Based on the migration by phase, we know the industrial revolution, like I mentioned earlier, industry 2.0, talking about mass production, lean production, Six Sigma, etc. They are the fundamental. And then we go to automation, then smart manufacturing or intelligence. So there are two dimensions. Next slide. But the small and medium-sized enterprise, they are in the right bottom corner. Their flexibility is very high because they are very hardworking, agile. But they are not rely on system. They are rely on hardworking people in APAC. So how those small and medium size enhanced into this industry 4.0, if you want them to standardize, follow SOP, etc., they will lose their strength for flexibility while they don't have much money to invest for system or those solutions. Next slide. So this industry 3.5 is like a hybrid strategy. On one hand, you follow this conventional way to build your foundation, but it takes a longer time. You need to be patient. On the other hand, you can have some shortcut using this AI, big data, etc., to pick up those low-hanging fruit for some innovative application like I mentioned earlier, those Ironman solutions, so that you can get benefit practically. So you on one hand you get realize some of the potential benefit of this ongoing industrial revolution, but on the other hand, you can try to pick up quickly from the bottom up, rather than try to follow the industry 4.0 like those big enterprise can do. Next slide. So I'm using another example. Semiconductor industry is high tech, but even after their fabrication, each of the die on the wafer, you need to touch down the circuit to detect whether it is good or bad. For those, they are no good die. They will package it into your cell phone, into your computer. So this slide is just illustration. Next slide. In the reality is that like my fingernail, now there are thousands of touch points on my finger. So those probe, they are tiny needle to touch down. So you can see it is very complicated, but the process is very mechanical. Next slide. They use a mold and the pressure to push the material into the probe. But there are only 2 input factors, while there are 9 quality characteristics need to within the control. So traditionally, the molding, the pressure along the time, the machine will degrading. So you need to adjust from time to time. You need to try and error, test run a few good probe, then you start to production. So it uses a lot of time and waste, etc. By using this big data AI, so we can real time institute to control, just like Ironman. We know that, okay, when I push a few times, it was degrading. So we need to adjust our power along time. So this is quite easy to be done, while this industry is still very conventional. Rather than I try to transform the whole factory into industry 4.0, we can adopt some of the novel application. Next slide, please. And this is one last example is a textile industry. We know we have a very good textile industry in Thailand as well as in other APEC economics. So this called Everest, they are the world's largest functional textile. Functional textile is a high tech. Those are different textile. They're supporting you feel good for those football players, etc. But even this company, they have their modern factory in the United States, but their factory headquartered in Taiwan is very traditional, but they produce thousands of different functional textile. Next slide. So they adopt our industry 3.5 solution. So while their factory is still very conventional, they use a lot of worker, but we can utilize those AI big data. We optimize their production scheduling. Now the lot size is reduced, and we also have this digital twin solution for them. So their president or their director, when they are traveling worldwide for business, they can realize the production status in their factory, and each workstation they know what to do next, and those decision or those interface, they are orchestrated by a centralized, optimized solution. So you don't need to call each other, ask other people to come to your meeting room to negotiate, etc. Next slide. And finally, part of my job, as I mentioned earlier, I'm a Tsinghua Chair Professor in National Tsinghua University. I'm also the director of one of 4 national AI centers in Taiwan, because our government, they try to promote AI for, I'm responsible for manufacturing. There are other centers for service, biotech, and technology, etc. So for this aims for intelligent manufacturing system, we want to foster international collaboration. Next slide. So we actually invite a lot of industry leaders to be our board member, including the chairman of the TSMC, including chairman of AIDC, including chairman of Biotechnology Association, try to cover different industry segments. So since they are industry leaders, so it will help me to lead our different PI since they come from different universities. So we actually have done it for more than 5 years now. It seems very successful for now. Next slide. So about 2 years ago, Nature has a feature article to interview me and cover our effort to, as a part of effort for transformation. Like I said earlier, when Germany proposed Industry 4.0, of course, a lot of developed countries they are capable to for this migration, but still take some time and effort. But for developing economics, like in APEC members, we may not be ready for that direct migration. So Taiwan, fortunately, because of collaboration with our government, university, industry, so we have been proposed a different solution, and it seems to work out very well now. Next slide. And I also invited as a chief expert for the APO, Asian Productivity Organization. And we through the collaboration, including representatives from Thailand, Philippines, India, Indonesia, Korea, Vietnam, etc. So we actually add a report that if you are interested, you can download from APO organization. Next slide. And thank you very much. It is my great pleasure and honor to share. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much to Professor Jianzhen Fu, or should I say Professor Ironman. Wonderful presentation. Now, we're running a bit over time, so I'll move right along to our next speaker. The theme is skills mapping, developing regional competency standards and qualification framework. To speak to us about this keynote topic is Mr. David Rorden, expert of TAFE Directors Australia, former CEO of New South Wales Department of Education International. Good day, sir. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, and thank you all very much. I've just dropped my notes. I'm sorry. Thank you all very much, and thank you. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the Workforce Development Agency, the Deputy Director General, and all distinguished delegates. So thank you very much for inviting me here today. I do want to just clarify that I'm representing TAFE Directors Australia. So they are the peak body for all of the technical and further education institutions in Australia. And my background, as the presenter mentioned, I was the CEO of one of Australia's largest TAFE institutes. I was also the CEO of the New South Wales Department of Education and Training International. And I would like to just acknowledge Juan Peng, who I worked with for many years. And over the last 2 years, I've been working very hard back in international education and the vocational education and training sector, and I'll come to that in a moment. So thank you all very much. My session today is going to be looking very much, and the first slide is there, is going to be looking at the Australian Qualifications Framework. And really, I wanted to talk about sort of skills mapping and competency standards. I did want to say it's very important for us to have such a strong relationship with Taiwan. And it's really important for Australia in terms of our economy for us to focus very much on skills. I think what needs to be said is that the cornerstone of the Australian economy and many economies around the world lays very much in the development of skills. And I think that we've all seen COVID has changed the way we operate. And in a post-COVID world, we will see a much greater emphasis on skills and skills development. So what I wanted to do was just give you a bit of a summary before we go on to the first slide. I wanted to give you a bit of a summary. Where is Australia at the moment? So like many countries, as a result of COVID, we are now facing a massive skills gap. We have very low unemployment. We have enormous gaps in terms of being able to fill jobs in many, many critical areas, particularly jobs that require skills, particularly what we would be referring to as vocational education and training. So on top of COVID, you're probably aware that Australia's also had a number of major climate events over the last 12 months, which has seen a massive shift in our construction, our rebuilding, a reinvestment in infrastructure development. So all the more reason for vocational education and training skills to be absolutely most important. On top of that, like everywhere else in the world, we've had many industries suffering from economic downturn, and also we have high interest rates and rising inflation. So like the rest of the world, we're facing a lot of these challenges. But one of the other challenges, or one of the other major shifts that we've had, is that we have a new government that has been elected 4 weeks ago. And that government is starting to focus very much on some of the changes that are required in our skills area. So one of the things is that Australia was one of the first countries in the world to have developed the Australian Qualifications Framework. And that slide is there in front of you. And as you can see, this was quite a hierarchical framework. And we are now reviewing this. But what it was that all of the qualifications, the accredited qualifications in Australia, fitted into this framework. At the very top of the screen, it started with Certificate 1, which is the entry-level qualification for vocational education and training. And if you move your way around the screen, you eventually come to the postdoctoral qualifications or doctoral qualifications. So it starts with Certificate 1, which is vocation, Certificate 1, 2, 3, and 4, mostly vocational qualifications, diploma and advanced diplomas, and then moving through to undergraduate and postgraduate qualifications. And all Australia's qualifications fitted into that. And as you would know, everybody knows that many qualifications frameworks have been developed around the world, and Australia's actually has been quite very strong for us. But it is now time to review that. And so the Australian government has invested money to review the Australian Qualifications Framework. An enormous project was funded some years ago, which basically looked at the changes that need to be made. If we can go to the next slide, please. I hope you can read that because it's very hard for me to read on my screen. So I'm just going to take you through it. Basically, the Australian Qualification Framework needs to be less complex, less hierarchical, and focus on qualifications that are linked to outcomes. So this is about mostly focusing on qualifications, not the hierarchy. But when we're talking about qualifications, we're also talking about skills. So the qualifications also need to respond to current and emerging workforce, social needs, and also, of course, the huge shift to technology. So the traditional role of formal qualifications is challenged by the ready availability of information through the internet. So that's really making a shift. So the report that is being put together, or has been put together, is making a major shift, upgrade on the Australian Qualifications Framework. And I'll take you through on that slide. I won't take for too long because I know we're running behind time. And I'm just checking my clock here. So it's going to be update to have contemporary language, contemporary descriptors, contemporary discussion and descriptions of skills that are required for the workforce. Its application needs to be more flexible. There'll be greater use of capabilities and updated capabilities, and that's most important. And of course, one of the things that's really important is, of course, links to national standards. So there needs to be strong links to national standards. What are the minimum standards that a aged care worker requires, a nurse requires? What are the minimum standards that someone who works in electrical engineering requires? So it needs to be very clear to that. And I think one of the other things is in the original Australian Qualifications Framework, it measured qualifications often in the length of time, years. And now we're talking about hours, not years. But of course, as the years have progressed, one of the things that has really taken over the world, of course, is the digitalisation. And so the new Australian Qualifications Framework will focus on digital literacy and ethical decision-making. And of course, the thing that I know through my research that is happening all over the world is an increase in what we refer to as micro-credentialing. So that's small courses, small skill sets that people can do that are required for them to be able to either progress in their career or get the job. And in the end, that's what we want. And at the moment, it's the micro-credentials that are becoming very important to Australia, and also credit recognition. So there are two very interesting innovations that have taken place in the vocational education and training sector nationally that I'll take you through very quickly. And if we can go to the next slide. So there's been a development of what's called the Australian Skills Classification. Now, the Australian Skills Classification is a really interesting step forward. And that's about classifying all the skills that are required for particular jobs and careers. And we have, so it enables new skills-based approaches to workforce and talent strategies, learning and development. And many employers now, of course, are employing based on skill sets, skills capabilities and competencies. And this, the Australian Skills Classification has 1,100 skills in it, classifications in it. So it's based on, and the whole essence of the Australian vocational education and training system, and I'll come to a case study in a moment, is to do with the role of industry. And our previous speaker was talking about the role of industry, and in Australia, the role of industry is critical in vocational education and training. So there are three types of skills for every occupation, and that's in the slide there: specialist skills, technology tools, and core competencies. And of course, you see the importance of technology tools. That's absolutely, and of course, the specialist tasks that are required to be able to do the job, and of course, the core competencies being what is required for us to be able to, the essential competencies, and similar special tasks are grouped together in skills clusters. If I can go to the next slide, please. Thank you very much. So the most important thing is that this classification, the Australian Skills Classification, has been put together based on industry experience, industry needs, and industry demands. So it's about having an absolutely integrated approach. And moving forward, as I've said there, there's 1,100 skills profiles across Australia and New Zealand. And essentially, this is really important for employers, but most importantly, for training organisations. And it identifies the skills that underpin the jobs in Australia and New Zealand. And really, this list is high quality, independent, and it's publicly available in Australia, but it absolutely helps job matching, identifies transferable skills, assists employers identify their skills needs, skills gaps, but most importantly, training opportunities. And this is how vocational education and training organisations moving into the future, particularly TAFEs nationally, will be based on the skills that are required for the jobs in order to get people into the jobs. And the last dot point there was it helps to identify critical skills labour market gaps nationally. And at the moment, this is one of the major issues that many countries are facing, are the skills gaps. So that, for instance, to give you an example, we have a skills gap in our construction industry. It is hard to get people to work in building and construction because there is so much building taking place. And so we have to make sure that we identify the skills gaps so that we can get people trained up to move into them. I'm conscious of the time, so I'm just going to move on to the last couple of slides. If I can go to the next slide, please. I'm just checking that we've got the right slide. I think we've got that one there. I apologise. If we can go to the next one, the classification structure, please. Yes, we've had that one. I think we've already had that one. Sorry, my mistake. I apologise. If we can just go to the second last one, which is the classification structure. Thank you. And as I've said to you, it's broken into three areas: core competencies, specialist tasks, and technology tools. And what I wanted to do was there's two case studies that are going to take 2 minutes, I promise. If we can go to the next slide, please. The next one after that. Thank you. I just wanted to something that I believe is interesting and essential, both in Australia and Taiwan and all the countries where people are joining us from today. And this is an example of the skill sets required for just a position as a baker or a pastry cook. And it lists all the basic core competencies and the skills that are required for that area. And then that tells the training providers as to what the vocational education and training program should be. And then finally, I just wanted to end, and I know I'm right on time, but I wanted just to end on one case study. At the moment, I'm heavily involved in providing training for people who operate water utilities across Australia. And the most important thing there is about getting skilled operators so that we reduce the risk for public health issues. And the second most important thing is to make sure that the industry is the cornerstone of how this training or these competencies are developed and how the training is delivered. So essentially, what we're seeing is that the Australian government is investing heavily in a shift in the way we're operating in the vocational education and training area. And also in 2023, we're also going to be bringing in what's called industry clusters, which is a group of industries that work together to determine what are the requirements nationally. So we'll have the combination of the skills classification, the new framework, the qualifications framework, and the skills clusters, industry clusters. So given the fact that it's, I don't know what time it is, it's exactly right on my time to finish. So I'll hand it over there and say thank you all very much, and I'll go back onto mute. I hope that was okay.
That was indeed wonderful, not just okay. Thank you so much, Mr. David Rorden. Thank you so much. And I love bakery and pastry cooks. Never quite get a hand on it, but thank you so much. You're right on time. In fact, you bought us more time. Moving on, ladies and gentlemen. On the theme of deliverables of Taiwan-Australia competency standards and curriculum mapping, to speak to us about this, we have the head of infrastructure, energy and construction, Sydney and Skills Excellence Network lead special projects. We have Miss Jennifer Perkins. Jennifer, are you online? Go ahead, please.
Yes, I am. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you to our esteemed guests and the WGA for inviting me to speak today. As I was introduced, my name's Jen Perkins. I'm the head of infrastructure, energy and construction for TAFE New South Wales, and I'm also the chairperson for the construction and energy skills excellence networks. Those skills excellence networks are aligned to the skills cluster, which David just referred to for New South Wales. Mr. Richard Bell was also going to join me in this presentation today. However, he's unwell. So I will do my best to present the specifics of the mapping process that was undertaken for the Carpentry Upskill process for the Taiwan Workforce Development Agency. Next slide, please. Thank you. For those of you that are unfamiliar with TAFE New South Wales, the acronym stands for Technical and Further Education. And NSW is an abbreviation of New South Wales, which is one of the eastern states of Australia. We're a state government-owned education provider that was established more than 130 years ago. We deliver Australian vocational and higher education qualifications, as well as customised training solutions for industries and business partners. Next slide, please. TAFE is not only the oldest vocational education and training provider in Australia, but we're also the largest and the #1 choice for students in New South Wales. Each year, between 400,000 and 500,000 students enrol in our courses and training. We also deliver offshore training to more than 3,500 students in China, Malaysia, Nepal, and Fiji every year. We have 136 physical delivery locations, so campuses, across the state of New South Wales, and an online arm called TAFE Digital, which is the largest vocational education training platform in Australia. We offer more than 1,200 training solutions for our students and customers. TAFE New South Wales has a great reputation for industry and business partnerships, and these connections ensure that our students get the highest level of practical training, meaning we can provide high quality, job-ready workforce. We're constantly adapting to our courses and facilities to suit local community and industry needs. And we apply the same approach to the global market to ensure market gaps can be supported with quality Australian-based vocational education solutions. Next slide, please. Thank you. TAFE New South Wales holds strong and consistent market share of more than 40% of the overall vet market. Likewise, our market share of infrastructure, energy and construction delivery is consistently in the mid 40% range for 3 years to 2020. And as an example of our market share, specifically in the course area relevant to WDA project, TAFE New South Wales holds 68% of the market for Certificate 3 carpentry. Our strengths in these industries, and indeed in construction, is due to a number of factors. TAFE has a strong investment in the apprenticeship, traineeship and school-based vocational systems. We have strong industry connections at policy, market development and operational levels that support us to develop future industry outlooks based on market insights, continually aligning our training with emerging industries, and provide that hands-on competency-based approach to learning for our students as they learn in their workplace or in a simulated environment. Likewise, the expertise within TAFE New South Wales supports us to retain such a large market share and can be attributed to the demand for our teachers that have industry experience and currency, the clear governance model that we operate under, which I'll cover in detail shortly, and the strong internal business structure supporting each industry. For example, market analysis teams, delivery teams, educational delivery teams, product development teams, governance committees, and so on. Next slide, please. To stay ahead of the trends, TAFE New South Wales operates 9 skills excellence networks. These are the industry clusters, which David was referring to earlier. The Skills Excellence Networks are a business-facing team made up of delivery and subject matter experts who are aligned to the skills area. They bring together expertise from across the state to identify opportunities and collaborate on challenges relating to specific skill areas. The alignment of these skill areas ensures the training offered to the market will be industry driven and have a consistent approach across the regions. Underneath the Skills Excellence Networks sits our teacher engagement networks. Their role is to improve communication between leadership and teachers and build collaboration and support and provide consistency in our training across the state. In short, the teacher engagement networks are the operational level network underpinning our ability to be to provide consistent delivery. They align the directions. My role is to align the direction of the Skills Excellence Network with the TAFE strategic plan, and we ensure that we have the right skills mix for our industry clusters. Some of the key priorities and plans that we have for 2022 and early 2023 are transitioning qualifications with our training packages, which is basically our curriculums, have all been renewed, and therefore we need to move our students into these new qualifications by the end of 2022. That's approximately 30,000 students that will need to transition. Apprenticeship and traineeship capacity. Our government has provided new opportunities in order to strengthen our skilled workforce. And so we have an increase in apprenticeship and trainees coming into the training into TAFE New South Wales. Next slide, please. Thank you. So some of our top priorities, you know, we look at the Skills Excellence Network and we have the mapping of the qualifications against what the Australian Government Construction and Australian Government Construction, Plumbing and Services Training Package, including the utilities one. And as you can see from the slide there, in my Skills Excellence Network, we deliver training products for over 150 construction or energy utilities qualifications. Next slide, please. Moving on to the mapping process. It is important to understand the governance structure that feeds our mapping first, as it explains in great detail how some of the recommendations and outcomes were reached in the WDA project. Next slide, please. The TAFE New South Wales mapping process is guided by a national training system made up of various levels of decision makers and stakeholders. The Australian Industry and Skills Committee recommends national training package products to the skills ministers for endorsement. Industry reference committees are the formal channels for considering industry skills requirements in the development and review of training packages. These committees advise the IRCs advise the AICs about the skills needs for their industry sectors. Skills service organisations are independent and professional service organisations that support the industry reference committees in their work developing and reviewing training packages. Skills service organisations are also key access points for other industry stakeholders who want to play a part in the development of training packages. As a whole, it's a circle of stakeholders that build the national training system that guides our business. Next slide, please. In mapping the carpentry package from Taiwan Workforce Development Agency, TAFE New South Wales implemented the same process as we would if we were mapping an updated qualification under a new training package. We started with our product manager and subject matter expert, Mr. Richard Bell, reviewing the Taiwan materials to identify whether we had all of the necessary information to progress with the mapping process. TAFE New South Wales and WDA spent a great deal of time discussing the outcome of the initial review in order to ascertain whether TAFE had all of the available materials. This was the stage of notifying relevant stakeholders, that is Taiwan WDA, and occurred through the course of mapping. I note here too that the mapping was not a singular process involving just one stakeholder. So regular communication with WDA and support from Austrade team were crucial to ensuring that we produce the most relevant and comprehensive outcomes for the project. When we had all of the relevant documentation from WDA, Richard commenced two comparison processes. One to compare the Taiwan and Australian materials at the strategic industry level, and the other to review the unit level information. The mapping process involved identified similarities in language, technical skills, or assessment criteria that that would help us identify any gaps at competency level. The final outcomes of both mapping processes resulted in 3 formal reports produced for WDA. 2 analysis reports with the outcome of the industry level and delivery level mapping, and 1 supplementary report on industry engagement strategies. Next slide, please. The project itself was broken into 2 phases. Phase 1 was the industry level assessment, which I'll talk to you now. Next slide, please. In phase 1, TAFE New South Wales conducted a mapping exercise to comparatively analyse the Taiwan Workforce Development Agency Carpentry Training Framework against the Australian Vocational Education and Training Framework and Standards. Given that the Australian Vocational Education and Training System has a strong governance model, as I detailed earlier, that contribute to the national training system that guides our business, we are seeking a similar structure within Taiwan system. Next slide, please. Likewise, looking at the industry standards within Taiwan that operate synchronously within our national training system. In Australia, we have a National Construction Code, which we refer to as the NCC. This is our country's primary set of technical design and construction provisions for buildings. The NCC is the minimum industry requirement set by the Australian government. Within the NCC, there are industry standards referred to in the WDA report. Australian standard AS1684 residential timber frame construction is a 4-part Australian standard covering design criteria, building practices, tie downs, bracing and span tables for timber framing members. It is also referred to as the timber framing code. This section of the NCC is what TAFE New South Wales identified as being of most relevance to the resource provided by WDA. Underneath AS1684 lie a number of parts and user guides that cover a wide range of acceptable practices. In reviewing our industry standards against the data from WDA and along with initial feedback sessions with Austrade and WDA, we identified a number of significant industry standard level difference between our respective carpentry models. Next slide, please. As per the previous slide, our construction industry and subsequently our vocational training system are heavily guided by a set of national standards and industry codes. TAFE New South Wales were not able to easily identify a governance structure and industry code for the Taiwan carpentry model. Likewise, we discovered that the vocational system in Australia is regulated by one governing body, which is our Department of Educational Skills and Employment. In Taiwan, however, their vocational system is complicated by the fact that they have 2 governing bodies. The Department of Education, which is responsible for overall education, and the Workforce Development Agency, which is responsible for skills training. That led to a greater understanding as to why it is so difficult to compare the governance structures from both educational and industry perspectives. From there, we understood that Taiwan did not yet have an equivalent qualifications framework or training package structure, which made the mapping process at that level extremely difficult. However, one key outcome from phase 1 was that it became evident that while those governance structures were very different, there appeared to be a gap in the breadth of the industry engagement between Australia and Taiwan. This is what led to the supplementary report in phase 1. Next slide, please. that the next slide? I think so. Taiwan and Australia Vocational Education and Training operate under the different governance structures. Australia, one is the governing body versus Taiwan, the two governing bodies. Australia's has a qualification framework versus Taiwan is yet to develop the qualifications framework. Australia follows training packages versus Taiwan training packages are in early stages of development. Industry engagement is central to the Australian vocational and education training system at all levels versus Taiwan industry engagement occurs directly between WDA and industry for standards development, possibly not at all other levels. Next slide, please. What we discovered after our initial evaluation, Australia's vet sector has been long internationally recognised for its leadership, quality and capacity to deliver qualifications aligned to jobs. In Australia, industry engagement is central to the Australian vet system at all levels. At the government level, the participation of industry in the development and design of training is how we ensure we are delivering the right skills to our learners. This means our graduates are skilled and immediately effective in the workforce. At the operational level, industry engagement helps our teachers build relationships with employers and form a support system for each student that clearly links their learning and education and their workplace skills. From a strategic perspective, industry engagement informs our internal market research so that as a business, TAFE New South Wales can project future educational demand on industry insights into changes and growth areas, emerging specialisations and cross-country industry trends, regulations and demand flows. Next slide, please. The supplementary report, and I've got 5 seconds left, but I'll be really quick for the next couple of slides. Supplementary report, phase 1, was about providing almost a guide to the engagement rather than an analysis, as the process for industry engagement were not embedded in the WDA systems. On that basis, the report represented a who, what, why and where approach to the industry engagement. Next slide, please. TAFE New South Wales carried out a side-by-side comparison. Actually, I'm on that went to, moving into phase 2, we drilled down into the data to refine any similarities and gaps between Australia and Taiwan. We looked at a unit mapping level. Sorry, next slide, please. We looked at the unit mapping level and tried to translate any corresponding words, identifying keywords or images, or mapping the documents to competencies. Next slide, please. Okay, the side-by-side comparison you can see here in the slide, and we mapped it against, we compared against 3 Australian qualifications from construction, plumbing and services training package. The reason for the WDA materials being reviewed against 3 qualifications instead of just Cert 3 carpentry was at stage 2 of identifying and word matching for a subject matter expert, identified a broad scope of technical matches across the carpentry and joinery and the shop fitting qualifications. Throughout this exercise, there were 2 key observations TAFE made. The Taiwan subject matter expert matched with varying degrees of performance criteria within 11 of the Australian units of competency. And the second one was the greatest proportion of unit of competency matches were actually found within the Certificate 3 joinery as opposed to the Certificate 3 in carpentry as originally thought. The data was presented to WDA and laid out in a format showing the relevant Taiwan criteria. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, some of the outcomes were to identify that the carpentry qualification combined 3 of the Australian qualifications, which we deliver as completely different pathways. And you can see that in that table there. Next slide, please. 2 recommendations from the phase 2 is that TAFE made were that they were both related to creating a clear pathway from governance structure right through to the learning materials and expected outcomes were set to achieve. Recommendation 1, TAFE New South Wales proposed that WDA consider establishing a framework with the system that they already had, that very clearly linked to this task. This would allow WDA to have a very clear framework from their delivery material into the industry expectations, provided industry were consulted for the development of the occupational competency areas. Recommendation 2 was about giving students a clearer capacity to understand the absolute minimum standard that would perform carpentry industry in Taiwan. In Australia, we have elective units which offer students the opportunity to branch out into specialised streams of a specific industry. Next slide, please. In summary, and I apologise for going over time, TAFE New South Wales and WDA participated in a very productive feedback session on June 6, which was really tied to a lot of the learnings together for both parties. WDA invited some incredibly impressive industry experts that were involved in the development and delivery of WDA training. This meeting reinforced the findings from phase 1 and 2 and also clarified the underwritten processes that do occur in engaging industry in Taiwan. For example, WDA shared that they do indeed need to invite industry to engage in their development of their standards, where 50% of the representatives are from industry and 50% are from the education research sector. In summary, the project was an intensive exercise for TAFE New South Wales and WDA. The additional benefits of engaging directly with the subject matter experts and representatives on both sides gave TAFE New South Wales a greater scope to compare the Australian and Taiwan carpentry qualifications and industry standards. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam Jennifer Perkins. Just slightly over time, so no worries. And that was a wonderful presentation. Do agree with you 100% because staying ahead of the trend is very important. It places you in a good position with your skills going into the future. Now, speaking of the future, let us talk about future cooperations. World skills, competition training, and new trends of joinery VT systems. To talk about this, we have from World Skills, Chinese Taipei, the expert of cabinet making, we have Professor Hou Shiguang. Please, Professor.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. We are welcome the distinguished guests from Australia, Thailand, Malaysia, and Indonesia. This is my honor to be able to participate in this section. The topic is world skill competition training in new trends in world skill in woodworking vocational training system. The content the content includes get to know the world skill, Taiwan national skill competition and participate world skill competition system and experience. The third one, participation in the experience of Taiwan woodworking talent and technical exchange and cooperation. The fourth, phase 2, follow up that is Taiwan and Australia project. That is a competency course project. The finally will looking to the future. First, we get to know that means understand the work skill. First, the work skill vision 2025. That is important. That is improved our world with the power of skill. And work skill with members work together to develop global skill standards. That means world skill. That skill is world standard. And world skill have 6 missions. That is education and training, research, competition, career building, international development, and promoting the skill. This presentation will involve all the 6 strategies. World skill value in 2005 proposed 5, that is integrated, finance, transparency, innovation, and partnership. 2017, 8 excellent, and 2019, 8 diversity. So right now I have 7 value of the world skill. World skill, woodworking related skill include camera making, joinery, and carpentry. This picture is the 3 skill technical description the cover. The second section, we're talking about the Taiwan National Skill Competition and the participation, the world skill system. First, the national skill competition in the region, that is the southern, central, and the north region skill competition. The select 5 competitors to the national skill competition. And after the competition, then we select 3 to 5 for world skill competition, where we 2 months national skill competition later, then select the world skill competition, and then select 1 for the world skill competitor. The national or international, the competitor get the medal. They can get the they can. Okay, sorry. They can get different amounts of bonus reward. If got world skill gold medal, he can get 2,000 million NT dollars, and the national that is 120 NT dollars. The competitor training our system, that is we have a competitor training center and have set up a spiritual counselor system and provide a variety of resources. My country, Taiwan skill, the organizer have a Minister of Labor and the Minister of Education. So our competitor from different way the competitor can participate a different way to for the world skill competitor. We have a study compare the top skill in the world skill top country, China, Korea, and Switzerland. Taiwan is top of 5. So from the training unit, select methods and world to comparison. Taiwan, we have participated world skill have 51 skills. In national skill competition, we have 65 skills. This table, the top 5 countries in the last 5 world skill competition. Since 5 countries in the last 5, last 5 competition. Taiwan is top of 5. The best is ranking is second. Just get a number of medal of winning of Taiwan. This is the 5. Okay, this is the cabinet making. Cabinet making in the top 5 countries in the last 5 world skill. In the 5 skill, Taiwan got 2 medals, and the test project we got the twice. 2011 and 2017 test project, the only one. So that is a test project design. Taiwan participates in world skill since 1971. This table is show the top 10 medal skill. I got a gold medal. The camera making is number 1 in the past in the 20th world skill. Got a medal. Camera making is number 1. And this table has participated in the top 10 middle school in the last 5 seasons of world skill. Camera making and journaling include in the top skills of in Taiwan. Taiwan number of medal of top skill. There are 6 catalogs in the world skill. And in the construction, cabinet making be select. Okay, the third we're talking about the worker talent and the skill exchange and the cooperation experience since 2001. That is 20 years ago. The first one is competency-based vocation training course that Taiwan and we cooperation with Australia. So we have a long time the cooperation. Okay, the second one is that is international forum or seminar contesting and another is participate the national Taiwan skill competition and I go to the other country to participate their skill since like 2019. We went to Brazil to skill exchange. As I know, have a two skill to there for skill exchange. And 2013, go to Australia. That is a global skill challenge world skill. Journalism and the camera making expert and the competitor, we are going there. And this year, March, we participate World Skill UK virtual skill final competition. And June, Taiwan, Australia, that is a carpentry competency project. Next, that is the activity, the picture. The former expert, chief expert of world skill, Jason, we invited him to Taiwan in 2014 to participate in the national skill competition and attend the skill forum, international forum. Okay, that is all the picture I mentioned about. We buy Korea, Japan, Thailand, Hong Kong, their competitor and expert to Taiwan. So we have lots of the skill exchange experience with other countries. And UK expert that he's camera making world skill camera making chip expert and go to Taiwan to participate our national skill competition. He bring his competitor and attend the international world skill international forum and present have a presentation. Okay, we go to Brazil to skill exchange. In this experience, we got 4 results. That is, I show the last one. Okay, here. The competitor, the training need to concentrate. That means live together and training together. And invite other competitor expert to participate the national activity, national skill activity. Okay, this is go to the Australia, the picture of Australia. Virtual world skill Okay, that is WorldSkills UK virtual skill competition. The test project is Japan design. Okay, the 4 section, phase 2, and okay, let me wait minutes. Phase 2, in June, this month 6, Taiwan, Australia online meeting, Taiwan raised 5 topics for discussion item, get a good result. Before the end meeting, 2 topics were raised at the exchange meeting. First one, the English version of follow-up the project document will be proposed by Taiwan and hand over to the Australia. The second one, that is decorating work, woodwork, that is 装潢木工, decorating woodwork. Comparison course will be posted by Taiwan according to with the Australia competency standard, and then sent to Australia to verification and confirmation. That is so after that meeting, our group will competency standard. Okay. After the Taiwan-Australia meeting, the Taiwan decorating the woodwork group also had a meeting to discuss of this project and have provide a proposal to the WDA and Chinese Management Association. I think right now is a review. Okay, the last section that is looking to the future. The development of Taiwan industry and economic and need primarily higher quality talent technical. Taiwan talent may come from the cultivation of university of technology. Our education have two system. Technical vocational education and vocational training. The system of Taiwan skill competition is in line with WorldSkills. So Taiwan has 20 years more the experience in WorldSkills exchange and work talent and technical since 2001. Cooperation project includes document training material, development of training material, competence training unit course, skill competition, visiting and technical exchange. The 4 WorldSkills Capacity Building Center, Chinese Taipei, WCBC, is the best platform for raising mobility of talent and skill. It is the best opportunity for the Taiwan woodwork competency training unit course to be in line with the Australia competency standard. We wish the Taiwan Australia Coventry the competency the cooperation project will be carried out and good result for the product in the near future. Okay, thank you. This is my presentation. Thank you so much.
And thank you so much to Professor Ho Shiguang. Thank you for presenting such a wonderful topic to us. Professor Ho has been to competitions all over the world, winning many awards. Now, after our speakers from Taipei and Australia, let us move on to another part of the world, Thailand. To speak to us from Thailand, we have Senior Manager of Thai German Institute, TGI, on the topic of responding to workforce evolution, current state of Thailand industry, and vocational training. The topic would be presented by Mr. Pomsak Suksiri. Sadika. Go ahead, please. Thank you.
สวัสดีครับ and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The time for me came from the Thai German Institute. This, thank you. This time I will sharing about the current state of Thailand industry and vocational training. For my area background, I graduated from the engineering in the machinery, automation, and robotics center. Maybe some word is relate on the engineering. Sorry. And next slide, please. For the current state of Thailand, maybe someone in this group know already about the campaign of the EEC, the Eastern Economic Corridor. It's a very big theme of Thailand to propose to follow from the Industrial 4.0. This project is start on the 2020, but it's something is delayed because of the pandemic. It should be the progress more than like it, but it slow down because of the pandemic. But it still can progress. I will show for will share for you. And EEC it have the 3 provinces in the east of Thailand: Chak Cheong Sao, Chonburi, and Rayong. Maybe you don't know the 3 of the province before, but maybe the Pattaya, you know, because it's the night beat in the Chonburi. That means in this area it have all the tourism, industry, and agriculture. Next slide, please. Maybe it came from the advantage of the location and geographic because the Thailand in the center of the Indochina and of the ASEAN. And the EEC in the orange color circle that you can see, it's in the center of the Thailand, and it's close to the shore. It's attached at the shore. That means it has the seaport can for the ship logistics. It's a benefit, it's an advantage for this area. Next slide, please. But for the EEC project, it not start from now. The project before on this area is the Eastern Seaboard project. In the 30 years ago for the Eastern Seaboard project. That time I just young, but now I'm 50 already, a little bit old. And this area is for the automotive, electronic, and chemical industry. It have a lot of the big brother, the big name of the automotive around the world. They estimate the factory, the manufacturing in Thailand. That thank you for them because the Thailand we are developed from their investment. That means for 3 provinces in the EEC, it still can improve. It can top up more, especially for the infrastructure. We have already about the road, about the railway, about the aviation, about the seaport. We have already, but for the technology it change, digitalization, the disruption it come. That means Thailand must be changed too. Next slide, please. The progress on this area on the EEC, you can see in the graph, the circle graph, 30% is the industrial sector already. It now industrial sector already because it have allowed the 26 industrial estate in this area. Okay, in Thailand, it's another area in the middle, in the Ayutthaya, in the north, in Lamphun, it have industrial estate, but it's a lot of the industrial estate in this area. That means the population allowed that you see 3 million people in this area, and the industry it allowed 30%. That means the people, the worker around Thailand, they come to this area. That sure in the yellow 27%. You can see it still have the tourism and service sector because it have the night beach, it have the Pattaya beach, it have the Sebet Island, maybe someone know that. The Chang Island, maybe someone know that. It have the the nature to traveling. maybe the worker allow the work come to work in EEC, they need to some place to rest. And another, you see the 3% of the green color in the graph is for agriculture. You know, maybe someone loves durian or someone hates durian because it bad smell. But for me, it's very the king of fruit. In Malaysia, my friend from Malaysia and Indonesia, they know about the durian. The durian is in Layong. That means as the EEC, it have a lot of the economic sector. Next slide, please. But for disruption change, Thailand must be change follow that, because if we don't change, we will die. We top up from the logistic infrastructure. You can see on the picture. We have already for the 2 seaport from the Lam Chabang and Mataput in Chonburi and in Layong, but it's not enough. We must be expand that for the phase 2, phase 3 to expand that to prepare for the biggest of the investment from around the world to this area. And sure, for the logistic aviation, we improve the Utapao International Airport. Maybe someone in this group, you know already about the Suvarnabhumi Airport and Dongmyeong Airport. It's the international airport in Thailand. But the third of the international airport in EEC is the Utapao. We upgrade that from the domestic airport. It's easy to adapt to improve them because it has the track for the airport already. And added for the high-speed train, high-speed railway, it's more to improve the infrastructure in EEC, because you can transport from Bangkok to the end of the railway at Layong province only 1 hour. Yep. And follow from the digitalization technology, EEC must be improved about the 5G infrastructure to can operate everything in Industrial 4.0 or smart factory. It's why must be have the digital infrastructure like this in the EEC. But normally in Thailand, we have allowed Thailand, but especially about strong signal for the bandwidth of the 5G, it must be have a lot in this area. And you can see some of the EECD, EECI, and EECG. It's a new theme to develop, because we don't want to worker or worker only. We try to integrating the university and the institute allow Thailand that they have the specialists to connect together to be like an organization to support, to research, to training, to support everything for the industry is locating in the EEC. Next slide, please. This page is just upgrade the status of the infrastructure that I said. For the high-speed train, it prepare for handover land for the project construction. It have the land for handover already on the Bangkok until the Layong province. And the goal that it will 2026. I'm not sure because the pandemic will come to be interrupt. But okay, it's still on progress. And for the Utapao International Airport, it's easy to improve them to be from the domestic airport to international airport. Next slide, please. And for the seaport that I said, Mataput seaport is on the Rayong province, and Lam Chabang seaport is on Chonburi province. It supports different industry. For the Mataput, it has for the chemical industry, refinery industry. It has some of the big brother of the chemical company locating in this area. And the Chonburi is a lot of the big brother, big brand of the automotive, the Ford, General Motors, BMW, BMW, a lot of the big brand of the automotive located in this area. Next slide, please. And the infrastructure of digitalization for 5G. We try to install for the network hardware locating for the access point allowed and can access the data for everywhere, because the goal it must be have the common of the data lake. It's for the suitable for you the data and analyze the data together for the common lake data. And after that, when the 5G infrastructure is ready, it will be utilized this infrastructure for the manufacturing and the social, because the public, the people it live in the pre-profit must be can use the digitalization via the hub of the 5G technology, and it will be continue to use for the 5G and digital transformation training program. I will show you some of the company, big name company, they come to join for the develop the training of the digitalization transformation already. Next slide, please. Yeah, that I said EEC not start from now, it start from the 30 years ago. That means it have a lot of the industrial estate. Now they have the 26 promotion zone, and they have the 2 of the industrial cluster. Next slide, please. And the big of the change that we will try, EEC and Thailand will try to propose, follow on this. Maybe you see it have the 12 of the target industry. But when I explain for you, it have the 5 group. You can observe on the color letter. The first one of the blue letter, health and well-being. It have the 5 technology in that. The first one is for the advanced agriculture, because Thailand is an agriculture country. And food for the future, Thailand has a lot of food and street food. And medical and comprehensive healthcare, we top up for the, we advantage for the hospital and the medical, we top up, merging with the, like for the relax after they come out from the hospital. Health value and medical tourism, that sure Thailand have the top of the country for tourism. We top up that connecting from the, after the medical come to the tourism and relax. And biofuel and biochemical. You can see, observe that it not start from zero. It will be top up from all advantage that we have, that Thailand we have for the first group. And the second group, I will propose on the digital group on the bottom in the orange color letter. It have the digital technology, digital industry, defensive, maybe I don't want to say the defensive, like a dual use. The dual use is like the technology from the army used for the manufacturing. The technology from the manufacturing for use for the army, something like it better. And the automation and robotics, it will use a lot in Thailand. BOI, Board of Investment, they propose a lot of the subsidy for this technology, because Thailand we a little bit have problem about the aging society, because someone don't want to have the children. Like me, I marry with my wife, but I don't want to have the children. Some of my friends in the group, maybe 5 persons have the children, only one family. It's the real in Thailand. That will be have the problem of Thailand. That's why Thailand must be have to improve the technology for the automation and robotics to replace the human. And intelligent smart electronics, it still connecting top up from the all advantage from the electronics. And another group is I think maybe you know already, like decarbonization, is the EV, the hybrid car, the next generation automotive. That's only one. The another group, the logistics, is the railway, is the plane, airplane, the aviation, everything, and logistics. The human resource development. The Thailand policy for the EEC, they worry about it. They set up the one of the group for the human resource development. It's one. That means the way, the goal to work this for 12 target must be do the develop human in EEC and in Thailand. Next slide, please. And a lot of the promotion zone is separate around the EEC. The location is I show maybe normally it's close to the shore. It's easy to transport for the TC port. Next slide, please. And again for the location and this industrial estate, it have already now. It have already, because that I say it continued from the 30 years ago. It had 26 industrial estate and 2 of the industrial cluster in EEC. Next slide, please. And the human capital and skill development of EEC. The way and the concept, it came from EEC. Next slide, please. They try to use the EEC model for the demand-driven approach for the human capital and skill development to provide the worker that meet to the industry demand is the keyword of this model. And for the left side, for the new skill, upskill, reskill, I think you know already. But the keyword for the EEC model is demand-driven because they want to develop the people to matching for the industry, for the demand-driven, for the demand side. It have two types. The first type is the EEC model type A. It's the long-term cross-vocational level. That means the participant that come to train for this, it came from the school, it came from the technical college, it came from the university, and they will training for long term. But concept it changed because the curriculum, the content of the training of the learning must be developed by the manufacturing demand side and the academic university or the technical college. They develop the course together because they want after the graduate, the student or the participant, they can work immediately in the same development in that they learn, and they have the process. I think it must be said this concept is like a economic, economic education because they must be have some contract with the manufacturing because the manufacturing will pay, allow the salary, the register money fee, the everything that the student need, the manufacturing will pay for them. That maybe they will have the contract after they graduate, they will have the work for the manufacturing maybe 1 year, 2 years after up to the contract. And the second of the EEC model is the type B. EEC model type B is the module short course training. The concept is still same. The curriculum must be developed together between the demand-driven, the manufacturing, and the academic. Maybe the institute like me, the TGI, we develop the short course training for them, suitable for their machine, suitable for their system, everything. For this project, the participant can form the factory, it's the worker, it's the employee in the factory, and they can out to learn throughout the short course. After for the short course, maybe 2 days or 3 days, they go back to their work. And maybe in the future, maybe next month, they come to train again for the next step or the next level. This concept, the Thailand government, they subsidize the money for the develop people like this, 50% for the whole of the budget. Example, if the whole budget is 100 baht, the Thai government pay the 50 baht for the manufacturing. Manufacturing pay only the 50%. And next slide, please. And they will take the receipt for the in budget of the training to be the like a tax deduction, 250%. That means the Thailand policy, they very strong policy to develop the people on the way of 12 target. 12 target is very important. That's why we must be develop the people because the 12 target is higher than now. That means they need to upskill, reskill, and more skill. That's why the Thai government be subsidize about the money for the manufacturing. Not only a Thai company, that all of the company that activate in the EEC. Next slide, please. And the example that you can see, the supply side, they try to support the demand side. Example of the Huawei, or the Alibaba, a lot of the big brother of the company around the world, they come to join together because they know their technology must be sold to the demand side. If they propose the training of the communication, the training of the network to the people, it will have to change. The demand side will buy their product, and EEC will like a host, have the some of the academic like a Thai TGI, Thai German Institute, like a host to organization, everything for training, support them to organize it. Next slide, please. And for the Vocational Education Commission in the under of the Ministry of Education, they must be adjust themselves because the EEC, they lead this concept. That means vocational or WEC, I will say the short. The WEC, they will develop themselves, adapt themselves. they will follow from this concept allow Thailand, not only for the EEC. Next slide, please. The concept for the demand side, they push from the authority of the Ministry of Education to push this demand side concept to the CVM. The CVM, it came from the Center of Vocational Manpower Network Management. They select the champion of the technical college, allow Thailand to be lead of this project. And next slide. And the same of the another side on the university. University is the under of the higher education side, research and innovation. They try to in the same concept, but they under the ministry, in the government ministry. That means they will take this concept from the EEC to develop themselves for allow Thailand. Must be change the concept for training to be the demand driven. Next slide, please. And the step of the operation of the CV project. Next slide, please. And the conclusion of the EEC education model. You see the blue, the dark blue is the EEC education model that I said it have two types. And another circle allow them is the vocational or commission, university, academic, the factory, infrastructure. It allow them, it must be connect together because they want to try to develop the worker to support the left side table. The left side table is allow 564,000 workers that we must be developed for the 12 of the target. I think that you clear. We have I focus on the target and the number of the people that we must be developed on the 5 year for develop this project of the EEC model. Next slide, please. And another is that for the activity that we do together for the example for the Type A. Type A, we must be analyze the need analysis of the factory together. This one is Type A. Type A that we will search at in the factory what the kind of the content that factory they need. Next slide, please. And after that, we come to have the meeting. I am in the meeting. Have the step to analyze how to find who is training, who is the train, how to train, access, and certify them. Next slide, please. And I show the real content that we have developed in Thai language in the left side. That means when we have the curriculum of the training is matching for the demand side, we must be proposed to the endorse for the committee. Next slide, please. This development for the proposed the curriculum that we develop together to the committee of EEC. Next slide, please. And after we finish, we must come to conclusion, evaluation, and improve the course together between TGI instructor team or academic and MD or the manager of the company. Next slide, please. Okay, I think the information for me is finished. I will show you about the real situation, the real picture that we train for the EEC in this one is for Thai B. Thai B because the participant came from the worker in the factory. Next PLC for the automation. And the next one is for the die maintenance, something like that. It relate on the engineering. Maybe this group is for the automation and robotic company. Automotive group. Next slide, please. And this course is for the PLC and communication CC link field, but for the auto part company. Sorry. Next slide, please. Condition based training and lean automation. Next slide, please. Sorry, I hurry up because my time is out already. Lean automation auto company. Another course for the standard. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. GD&T automotive. And I will close the conclusion follow from it. That you can see the development of the way to the training in Thailand. It must be have the demand driven. The course, the training course must be matching for the industrial need, the manufacturing need. And you can see the picture, it training in their factory. That means they learn from the real situation in their factory. That means we hope for this way we can develop our people on the EEC. That's all for me. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Kapun Kap to Mr. Pom Suksiri. Wonderful presentation. The time now According to Taipei time I have now is 4:42. So let's take a 5-minute break before we come back for the panel discussion. We'll see you in 5 minutes. Don't go away. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. After the break, I hope you enjoyed your coffee, tea, dessert, whatever you had. Back to our Global Trend Talent and Skills Mobility webinar. It is time for our panel discussion. I would now like to introduce both our chair and our panelists. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our moderator, our chairperson, which is also the chairman of Global Education Association in Taiwan. This is Chairman Professor Cai Xitao. Welcome, sir. And now introducing our panelists, we have expert of TAFE Directors Australia, TDA, former CEO, NSW, which is New South Wales Department of Education International. This is Mr. David Rorden. Thank you for joining us. And now please welcome our panelists. This is Madame Yuan Peng, Senior Manager, Global Engagement of TAFE, New South Wales, Australia. And welcoming, who had just joined us from Thailand, this is Mr. Pomsak Suksiri, welcoming you once again, sir. Senior Manager, Thai German Institute, TGI from Thailand. And please welcome our panelist, Chair Professor of National Tsinghua University. This is Professor Jian Zhenfu. Thank you for joining us as the panelist. Ladies and gentlemen, we also have with us the expert of cabinet making from World Skills Chinese Taipei. This is Professor Hou Shiguang. Thank you for joining us. And ladies and gentlemen, this is the expert of joinery World Skills Chinese Taipei. We have Mr. Jia Daqing. Thank you so much for joining us. And last but not least, and of course very important, joining us, we have our senior specialist, Competency Standard and Skills Assessment Division from our host organization from WDA. We have Mr. Chen Mingshan. Ladies and gentlemen, and that begins our panel discussion. I'm turning the floor over to our moderator, Chairman Professor Tsai. All yours.
Thank you, Mark, for your introduction. Distinguished guests from Australia, from Thailand, and from Taiwan. We had very informative lectures from our speakers. And this section, we will have 30 minutes for discussions on two issues. The first one we concerned about is the issue about the cooperation in skill recognition. We know that the economic in Pacific Asian region is very intensive. Between Taiwan and Australia, Taiwan and Thailand and other countries are having very much of activities in terms of economic exchange and also trade and education, also in business and other areas, so that the mutual recognition of skill certification and skill levels is very important for the talent and skill mobility. And also we are knowing that under the effect of COVID-19, there's a lot of demand on the digital transformation. We also about concerned about what is the impact of this kind of situation that digital transformation is, what is that going to be, and how we cope with those kind of difficulty time to have a good digital transformation, so that the training and skill development will be going very smoothly. Time is very limited. Let me invite our discussion panelists to have some opinion on these two issues. For the first one, I would like to invite Mr. David Rorden to talk something about how can we have a good mutual recognition on the skill recognition. Please, Mr. Rorden.
David Reardon. It's a very difficult name, I'm sorry. So thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate your question. I think it's a really interesting question, and my colleagues from Australia will be nodding their head, that mutual recognition has been something that we've been looking at for many, many years. One of the things that I would like to say is that Australia has strong connections, as you said, with many, many countries around the world. And our vocational education and training system, and we've had two speakers today talking about TAFE New South Wales and TAFE nationally, is one of the world's most highly regarded vocational education and training system. And I suppose what I'd like to say is that our new government has shown some very clear indications of the importance of skills, of the importance of international relations, and particularly when it comes to skill migration, recognition of qualifications, and I think we're going to see some great changes there. We are seeing very clear indications from the new government, and particularly our Foreign Affairs Minister, that we will have strong relations with many of our partners, nations, and certainly many of the nations represented here today. Of course, mutual recognition has a number of criteria that is somewhat difficult, but nevertheless, I'm confident that we're going to have a much stronger relations. I'm hoping that you can hear me.
Yeah, thank you, David. I heard it very clearly, and I hope that this is only, although this is a very small step in the road, but I think this is a very good starting point. Let's work together to see we can work something out. Thank you. And next, I would invite Mr. Yan Pen from also from Australia. Mr. Pen, please. Oh, sorry, Mr. Yuan, sorry.
No, Ms. Peng, that's correct. Peng Yuan, that's the correct name. Thank you, Mr. Tai. So just adding to what David has mentioned earlier, global skills recognition is very important to enhance students' mobility across different, countries and nations and regions. The challenges will be particularly in the trade area, due to the building code and practices are different. That will be certain challenges in terms of recognizing the skills and qualifications across different parts of the world. However, there are ways to overcome those challenges. For example, we can certainly look at identify the gaps in terms of the skills, and then we can provide gap training. That's one way of looking at it. The other way and the other approach potentially is the RPL, which is the recognition of prior learning. So looking at and assessing the previous qualification that a particular students have completed from another part of the world and mapping against another country's qualification and providing that credits and recognition of learning. That's another way of looking at the gap training. So in summary, though, looking at the skills recognition, there are a number of factors to consider. Governance framework within different systems and from different countries and regions certainly is a factor to consider. Jan has mentioned earlier in her presentation, based on the report we've provided to WDA, in carpentry industry, for example, there are different governance frameworks in place between the two. So therefore, looking at how we can standardize or benchmark the industry standards, that's a critical area to look at. And our educational qualification framework. So in Australia, we have the Australian qualification framework, which David mentioned in one of his first slides as well, the AQF. So looking at the qualification framework and ensuring that's alignment between the two frameworks is also going to be important to look at. Certainly, it's going to be a long road, but I think it's a very exciting project, and it will enhance the students' mobility down the road.
I think although it's a long way, but I think it is workable. I think that Taiwan has a very much of expectation on that, and we are getting to that area heavily, so that see we can work something out for that. And thank you for your advices and also your insightful information. And next one, I have another guest from Thailand, Mr. Susirit, and he is working for TGI. I think it's a very good institute in Thailand. Would you mind to share some what you have on that and how you see that we can work bilaterally between Taiwan and Thailand? Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah. Before we talk about the cooperation between WDA, Thailand, and TGI, I would like to sharing about the global labor that we have some experience to share. Before the COVID pandemic, they come. In ASEAN, they set up AEC, the ASEAN Economic Community. We close to like a merging every country in ASEAN together, and labor transfer, labor transportation, it close to be have the success for that way. That means now in Thailand before the pandemic, the worker it came from the Myanmar, came from the Laos, PDPR, came from the Cambodia. They have a lot to work, and the rate of the payment in Thailand it have a little bit high in ASEAN. That means before the pandemic, the worker they transport come to work. That means the skill and the training and the certificate for the professional certificate must be have to set up the standard. It's same, and they can change the company, they can change the factory that they want if they have the allow, have the passport, have the visa, come to work in Thailand. And two, Thailand can exchange to work in the allow the ASEAN work can work in Malaysia and work in the Indonesia too, because the some of the automotive industry move to the Indonesia. Maybe Thai people, Thai engineer must be moved to work in the Indonesia country. That means it could to be nice, but the pandemic it come to interrupt. That this critical it make us to try to change, because when they go back, the labor from the Myanmar, Laos, DPR, and Cambodia, they go back, and their country they develop too. Some of the country they have the work to do already. They have the factory in the Cambodia, in the Laos. They have the some of the Amata industrial estate. They locate in the north of the Laos, DPR, something like that. The example. That means this critical of Thailand for the worker don't come back, and the aging society that I said. And another thing that like a pandemic, it's like a social distancing, it makes us to push us to develop the example way that used for the robotics and automation to replace the worker. But the automation and robotics it still must be used, the technician or the higher worker to take care of that, to repair that, or to maintain that. That means the content of the curriculum is higher. If we change for the labor skill, for you the body, for you the hand to do that, change to be the automation and robotics. That is an example. That means Thailand must be upskill, only skill some people that don't know before when they graduate from their school, don't know about the automation, don't know about the robotics. They must be re-skill. And some people in the technician, they must be upskill to change their career to be in the high-tech technology. It's why the EEC that I show from the presentation, they try to put up the skill of the Thai people. Maybe if the AEC they come again, maybe Thailand must be improve the skill of the AEC too. The worker friend country come back to Thailand, we must be develop them together. And if finally, maybe if the pandemic didn't go anymore, the good situation it come back. I think the AEC it come back, and it must be follow from the like a standard of the TPQI for qualify of the career to change the work. And the final of the answer that you asked me for the cooperation between Thailand and Taiwan is for the long time, because now we have, I think we have the academic of Taiwan in Thailand already, and have the big company in the big brother in Thailand in the Delta. They joined the EEC already. I show you. They is the big brother company in Thailand who joined to the EEC model. I don't show the logo of the Delta, but they join already for the work with the training, upskill, reskill in EEC and in Thailand. That's all for me.
Thank you. Thank you for Mr. Susirit, and he shared that experience of between Thailand and Asian countries. I think this is very good experience for us to learn. Taiwan has a lot of investment in Asian country and also Thailand. I think that we need to get into that also. But fortunately, WTA had signed that MOU with Australia and also TGI. I think this is a good starting point for us to work together. And thank you for sharing that experience. All right. Let's now let me invite experts from Taiwan. The first one is Mr. 贾大庆裁判长Mr. Jia, please.
大家好。
不好意思，那我们欢迎这个门窗木工之类的裁判长贾大庆先生。是。So we're very happy that we're able to share our experiences and also cooperate with the countries that are of course present at the event today, and we can discuss on how we can set up a system that is that can have a standardized qualification process that will allow for our talents to be able to be more mobilized and more flexible in different parts of the world.
2020年曾经带学生到墨尔本，赫姆格兰查士顿的校区举办的这个技能挑战赛。让我印象非常深刻的就是，有很先进的这个设备，还有非常清洁明亮的工厂，而且最令我压抑的就是，它随时就可以办理一个国际赛事，这个是值得我们学习的。
So I was very surprised at one of the competitions of the World Skills competitions that was held in 2020 in Melbourne. We were very lucky to send some of our students there as competitors, and we were very surprised at how advanced the technology is, how clean and very efficient the process in their factories are, and we're also very impressed with how well and how fast they can organize such a big event on pretty much in a short time frame. And so I think that's something that all of our other countries who are looking to have more of these interactions and events can learn from.
透过这一次的对接，我想可以检视我们不足的地方，尤其是在训练文件的建立，像资历认证的这些指南啊，还有一些训练包的这些指南、评估指南等。
So
另外还有就是教材的一致性，以及如何不断的更新，扩大产业参与跟业界需求为导向的课程，是我们日后必须加强改进的地方。谢谢。
So through our communications, we have learned that there are a lot for us to improve on, especially in the documentations. And of course, the documentations include the qualifications, standardized qualification, and of course, the certification process, and also especially in the education and our vocational training packages, we need to update those to meet with whatever the current trend is in the industries, so that we can provide them with talents with the right skill sets and with the right certification for them to work in. So that's all from me. Thank you.
今天从执行长刚刚提的一个概念，让我也学习很多。 尤其他提到了像电子版的微型的认证的这些概念啊，那这个将来可能我们也是可以参考的，把所有他学习过的这些历程，能够像类似存放在像类似我们的健保卡这里边。那以上是我的个人的心得，谢谢。
So one thing that I would like to add is that I've heard from the one of the speakers from earlier, from the TAFE Directors Australia. I think that the qualification system, it can be kind of stored into kind of like a set of into a identification card or some type of registry system, and then that can be kind of incorporated with, for example, for our health card, our healthcare cards. So then it can be scanned and it can be understood right away, and that can possibly assist in distributing our workers and talents into the appropriate work fields as well. So that's my take from this seminar today.
All right, thank you for Mr. Jia's excellent presentation on what he has observed and what he has seen from the different countries and how we can learn or cooperate with different countries. Thank you, Mr. Jia. And we have another expert in the working. He's Professor. Professor Ho, Tony Ho. He also is the 裁判长 at the he's the chief trainer for the cabinet making competitor in Taiwan. Professor Ho, please.
Thank you, Chairperson. Taiwan and Australia, the carpentry competency the project. The current situation is communication through the document and online. I hope the near future we can go to Australia to visit and to face to discussion for the Australia the competency standard. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Ho. Very brief discussed about the issue. All right, I wish I had more time for our panelists to talk more. Unfortunately, time is very limited, so I have to turn to the second issue. The second issue is about digital transformation. We have many experts here on the line. I would invite Dr. Jian from National Tsinghua Hua University to share his experience. Dr. Jian, please. I think we have a technical problem on communication. Sorry for this. Sometimes the technology will go down, so it could happen. Just bring to the technology. All right, let's keep going on that second issue. On site, we have a representative from WDA, our senior specialist, Mr. Chen Min-shan. Mr. Chen, please.
Thank you, Mr. Tsai. Today, it's really a constructive webinar. When it comes to the skills, many people think of the WorldSkills International. Yes, WorldSkills International is made up of 85 member countries. Those countries include 90% global population. WorldSkills International set up technical description and occupational standards for skills. Those occupational standards lay out the knowledge, skill, and the attitude for the workplace demanding. Those occupational standards are showcased in world scale competition, one of the largest scale competition globally. Taiwan has started participation in the world scale competition in 1971. He offered the young people a global stage to showcase their excellent skills. More importantly, he also drives our skill development in line with the global practice and the occupational standards. World Scale International have the 36 member country in 2000, growing to the 85 member countries so far. This rapid growth in member country translate into the aligning more member countries' vocational training education with the occupational standards. This move will help drive professional talent, mutual recognition in the region, and spur regional economic integration and the success. Concerning the COVID-19 impact, the WDA Taiwan have introduced many training video for the expert in how to help expert and the young generation to boost their skill in a difficult time. Once again, thanks for your asking and have a lovely day.
Thank you for Mr. Chen to share that things that we needed to know about and also what we needed to work on it. And we have another two distinguished guests from Australia. I would like to invite Ms. Jennifer Perkins to share her opinion and experience about how can we cope with the difficulty times through digital transformation to develop that skill talent. Ms. Perkins, please.
I'm sorry, could you just repeat that question, please?
The issue is about digital transformation. We know that at this time we have a very difficult because we have a dramatic effect that develop that economic and also the society as a whole. And how can we use the digital technology to help us to develop that skill talent? You have any comments or idea about this?
Yeah, I guess so. So our digital technologies, I mean, for trade students, which is the area that I look after, is they learn by doing. So it is a very much a hands-on experience for their learning journey. As far as digital technologies, we are adapting to them. We use drone technology and things in our delivery that things like GoPros for when people can't travel into campus, especially in the most recent with the pandemic and areas were in lockdown in Australia and they couldn't come into campuses. So we could do, we use Microsoft Teams as a digital learning platform. We have a TAFE digital campus, which we have most of our learning resources available to our students. For our practical delivery and our skills delivery, we are able to utilise, digital technologies such as, whether it's GoPros and iPads and iPhones and drones to provide a learning experience for students when they're not on campus. The other way that we can utilise those into our delivery is if they're working, for example, if somebody's working on an elevated work platform, so working at height, then we're able to demonstrate what they're doing at height for the students that might be down on the ground 11 metres below the other, where the teacher is. For our surveying and spatial students, when they're surveying a a large parcel of land, we bring in the drones to help with the surveying of that land. Recently, we have lifesavers at our beaches, and the lifesavers were using the drone technology to review when what the ocean was doing, whether there were dangerous currents in the oceans, and educating people on the sand at the beach for that, and also looking out for some nasties in the water like sharks or dangerous critters. So yeah, I think that's probably all I've got to say on that. Thank you.
Thank you for the very excellent presentation about sharing about the experience you have in Australia. I have another guest from Australia. In English, we say the last is not a list. For Chinese, for Taiwanese, we say the best wine always think in the bottom of the bottle. And I would invite Miss Amber Mastrangeri to share her experience about how we exploit the digital technology to help us to overcome the difficulty time in the economic and also developing the skill talent. Amber, please.
Thank you. That was an extremely generous introduction. In terms of utilising digital technology to really, I guess, advance or facilitate our training, especially in times of challenge such as COVID-19, Jen did touch on one particular piece that we have seen some really wonderful success with. And in particular, it's not necessarily a technological model that has to stop when COVID is over. It's something that we believe actually has a great deal of potential for, being picked up in other industries. So Jen mentioned the GoPro delivery, and the operationalisation of that has allowed our teaching staff to wear a camera on their body at a particular height and deliver instruction that is focused directly on the handiwork that is happening at the time. So instead of students witnessing delivery from a computer screen, which may be very far away, the delivery is actually modified and made bigger and focused on the particular task at hand. So, we've seen, I guess, students greater numbers of completions and engagement in class as well with that particular technology. That's something that there would be a great deal of value in looking at that model, whether it be something that's adapted within the Taiwan model alone or in the international model alone, or whether it is actually a technology and a delivery model that could work between Australia and our international partners. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Amber, the kind of shared experience you have, and also it's a very practical example of how we use digital technology to enhance the instructional process. All right, I would open to all the speakers. Anyone who have any further things wanted to share with, feel free to talk, to have anyone who I have Professor Jen. Is Professor Jen on the line now at this moment? All right. If not, I think the time is about. It's over what we have printed. So I would call for the end of this section. And thank you very much for our discussed panelists shared so much rich information for this section, and also provide practical and feasible way to cooperate between Taiwan and Australia, Taiwan and Thailand. I think it start from now. This is just at the beginning. We know we have a long way to go, and I think that with your help, Taiwan can learn something from different countries. Wish you have a great day, and for Taiwan, we will have summer vacation coming for the schools. I wish all of you have good summer break and good days for the vacation. Thank you so much for joining the sessions. I'll turn my floor to Mark. All right.
Thank you so much, Professor Tsai, and thank you to our panelists. This has been a fruitful and wonderful discussion, and thank you for joining us online with our Global Trend Talent and Skills Mobility webinar. Let's work together to improve our talent and skills. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. That wraps up our webinar for today, and since COVID is still with us, do take care of yourself and your family. I'm Andy Lee, at your service. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time. Thank you.